I used to work in finance, first as a product manager and then as a credit risk analyst and associate. And then I left to pursue a ski media company. But I didn't just quit out of the blue and build the company from scratch from there. There's a long journey associated with that. And I also now run through ski trips. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that journey throughout this session. But I want to let Selena tell you a little bit about herself before we jump in.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. It's Monday night, and this is the best decision you made all week, although it's only the first day of the week. My name is Selena. I quit my corporate job, I think, like almost 10 years ago. I started my career as an investment banker, and then I worked as a corporate lawyer at a big law firm in the town. I was a private equity lawyer, so I did like all the things that the society told me that I should do to be happy and successful. And I learned the hard way, the importance of doing work that's really meaningful to me. So I felt like I had achieved all the goals in my life, but I was in the wrong race. I won the race, but I was in the wrong race. So it was a really difficult transition because I felt so alone in the journey. And there's so much that I learned along the transition. So I'm here to share it with you all. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was pretty sure that I didn't want to be a lawyer for the rest of my life. And I'll tell you all the reasons why I felt that way. And then after trying a bunch of different things, I eventually found my into the world of coaching, and I became a career executive coach. And for the past 10 years, I've helped a lot of people like yourselves leave corporate jobs and transition into fulfilling careers. And not just people who are quitting, but help people navigate the career journey, get promotions, start their companies, write your book, start your side project, whatever it is that you want to do. And I've just been dedicating my whole life to helping people pursue their dreams. And I recently launched a community called Live Your Dream Club. It's a group coaching program and a community designed to help people navigate their career transition, figure out your next step, and then achieve your goals and dreams. And I also have a podcast called Live Your Dream with Selena, where I share inspirational stories of people who have done amazing things in their lives. So, all right, so we'll get started. So we're going through a live stream. So there's a lot of people joining from all over the world. Say hello, hello. And hopefully we'll be able to manage both. This is our first time trying to do in-person and also live stream. So hopefully, you can all participate and ask questions. If you're joining from live stream, you can ask questions in the chat, and then we'll get to them at the end.
Right. Awesome. Cool. So let's get started. And basically, the first thing you need to do before you quit is you actually need to ask yourself, does this make sense? The last thing you want to do, and unfortunately, this is something that in movies and in TV shows is almost always depicted. You do not want to quit impulsively. That is the last thing you want to do. There are several questions that you need to be asking yourself if you want to go and quit a corporate job for the long term. There are several places where this makes sense. A couple of them have to do with your morals. So for example, if you are just unhappy with what your company is doing, if you don't believe that, what you're doing in life is ethical, that's a really good reason to get out of the corporate world. If you are in a situation where you just don't feel like, even like what Selena said, if what you're doing isn't making you happy, and you really just don't think that your line of work is making you happy, it's not your current company, it's your actual line of work. Let's say, for example, if you work at X next law firm and that law firm sucks, but you go to another law firm and it's great and you love being a lawyer, that's one thing. But if you hate working at your law firm because you hate being a lawyer, that is a totally different situation when quitting and starting your own thing might make more sense. There's also, the situation where you actually have a passion for something, or you either have a really strong passion for something, or you have a really clear vision on building something that could be, really worth doing. If you are in a situation where you kind of have an idea of what to do, or you don't really know exactly how you want to structure what you're building, maybe think about it a little bit more. But if you have a really, really clear vision of how to achieve something, and there are things that are achievable that, you might not be able to do when you have a corporate job, or you might be able to start building on the side. But if you have that clear vision, that starts to make the case for maybe building what you have on the side at first, and then maybe if you see some traction there, having it take off in quitting your job. And then finally, sorry for people who are watching on Zoom, but finally, especially if you're young and you don't necessarily know how much time you'll have in your career to do a certain thing, opportunity cost is a huge reason to want to quit your job. Like if you're in a situation where you have an opportunity to do something, you will regret it if you don't. That might actually be a good reason. That's probably the most impulsive reason to do it, to quit your job on this list. You should still do it if you have at least a couple of these other 4 pillars on that.
Is my booking working?
Yes.
Hopefully the live stream people can still hear us. I think the reasons for quitting is different for everybody. So it's helpful to really think about what is really important to you. So knowing your values and what you want to achieve and experience in this life is really, really helpful. So one of the things that really helped me to quit was I was looking at my boss, and I like them as a person, but I didn't like how they were spending their time. So I thought, okay, if I put my head down and work really, really hard, 5-10 years from now, I could be like them. And I didn't want to be like them. I saw, they were growing old. They were basically reviewing contracts to help rich people become richer. I was a private equity lawyer, so that's all I did with my time. So if I could put a all-nighter and work really hard, someone who's a billionaire who's going to be even more of a billionaire. And I thought, am I okay growing old doing this? And the answer was no. So for me, I learned the hard way that the lack of meaning is non-negotiable for me. So you have to think about is the reason for why you're trying to leave your job, is it like a BS you can tolerate? Like you'd rather not have it, but you can manage it. But does it violate one of your core values? So one of my core values is it is really important for me to do work that is really meaningful to me. I'm a hardworking person, so I can do hard work. But if I feel like at the end of the day, my work has really no meaning for me, that does not motivate me to keep going. So I knew that 5-10 years from now, if I can be like my boss, that is not okay for me. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to quit. I also think that it's really helpful to be honest with yourself about what is really important to you. So, for example, when I was working as an investment banker and a corporate lawyer, I really liked some aspects of the job. So, and I really had to be honest with myself. I like the paycheck, of course. You get paid a lot of money for your age at the time. And also there's all these seeming prestige of working in big law or for an investment bank. There's all these perks. Your office at the Rockefeller Center, and you have this nice business card and all this support staff, and they take you to all these fancy. I think I went to all the Michelin star restaurants, all these cool stuff. But then at the end of the day, I didn't enjoy the core of what I had to do, which was my job as a lawyer was to review contracts to help rich people become richer. And I did not like that. So I felt like I was only enjoying the side perks of my job, but not the core responsibility of my job. And that's when I knew that, well, there's something wrong with this picture. I'm not okay with continuing on this path, and I need to think about my exit plan. So I think that was a pretty big realization for me. Another thing that I think was helpful for me was thinking about when you're really happy or unhappy. And I have found that when I have a lot of time and freedom to spend in the way that I want, I'm really happy. But when I'm the least happy is when I don't have control over how I spend my time. So lack of freedom. And it came up again and again in all the value systems I do with my clients. And at the time, I also had a coach who helped me to understand that freedom is one of my top core values. And so for me, I didn't mind the amount of work or how hard I had to work, but it was the unpredictability of the schedule. I was constantly on call. There were many days when I had to canceled plans last minute. Like I couldn't even plan my vacation. And I didn't want to be the friend who always like cancels plans last minute. I had to cancel any vacation. So basically, like I was not the owner of my own life. I was like, I almost felt like it was like an invisible jail, you know, like a really fancy jail. But basically, I cannot control, I cannot spend time in the way that I wanted. And after a while, like no amount of money was going to be worth it. So I think just kind of like so knowing. So this is the question only you can answer for yourself. Like, what is the most important core value for you? What are you okay with? What are you not okay with? Is the reason for why you're trying to quit, is it, does it violate your core values? Or is it like a annoying thing that you could tolerate? Like if your boss is kind of annoying or, you know, you don't like your colleague, guess what? If you move to another job, you might have an also annoying or annoying colleague or boss, right? So you have to think about that. So like being honest and then creating kind of like some, your own standard and rules for why you're quitting. And that will help you because, as we're going to talk about soon, you're going through a lot of emotional roller coasters after you quit. And then if you quit for the right reason for you, it's going to help you go through that time and then actually come out of it.
Cool. And then I got a question for one of you guys before we got sat down. And I think it had to do with, you know, like whether quitting is the same thing as starting your own company. And I wanted to just touch on that because I started my current business actually 4 years before I fully quit the corporate world. And I just wanted to touch on that because I didn't actually know when I started my business on the side. I did not know if it was going to be something that I was going to take full time or if it was just going to be a side hustle for the near term future. So I wanted to just walk you guys through specifically what made me realize that it needed to be a full-time gig. And hopefully this helps some of you guys out who are thinking of starting things, because you don't necessarily need to quit your job to start a business. And I think that's something that's really important that I don't know if I put specifically in this slide, but quitting your job is a much bigger step than starting something on the side. So I specifically started my business because I was working in credit risk. I wasn't really happy with the role. I wanted to move into something that was more growth or marketing related. And I didn't feel like in my position at that time, I was able to do that. So I just was like, okay, if I build this business that ranks ski resorts and helps, you know, like grow a website on the side, I can just show this to other businesses and get a role in growth just by doing it. But it turned out that didn't really happen. I ended up going into further and further credit risk related roles just because that's what the market at the time was offering me. They just cared way more about the fact that I could underwrite credit cards than the fact that I literally built a website from scratch and scaled it to that with like 10,000 people viewing it a month, which in the grand scheme of things isn't the biggest, but at the time I thought it was a pretty big deal. So I was like trying to market myself as this growth marketer, but like people were seeing my resume and they're like, oh, let's hire this guy's a credit risk person. And so basically, long story short, there were some ethical issues I had with some of the companies I worked for. Before I fully quit corporate, I actually left the companies that I had the serious ethical problems with. In my final company that I worked for before I quit my corporate job, I did not have an ethical problem with their business. So I worked for Ramp, which was an expense management corporate card company. The way that they made their money, still make their money, I think it's ethical as far as it goes. It's fairly B2B. The way that they underwrite customers is fairly ethical, but I just could not find a way to get the growth marketing experience that I wanted. I just felt myself like they kept me on the credit risk team, mainly working on credit limits. I felt like I was just stuck there. I couldn't move positions in order to get what I wanted. And so in order to achieve basically like that growth, and honestly, because it had been 4 years since I'd started Peak Rankings, it was just getting to the point where I was losing the opportunity cost was seriously there. And I needed to try to take it full time to make it work. And so essentially, there are just a ton of things on here that, you know, I ended up having at different times throughout, like realizing throughout different times throughout the journey of starting my company. But I do want to make it very clear that starting a company is very, very different from quitting your job. And we'll go into it a little bit later, but it's also very different when you have a network versus when you don't have a network. Okay, so let's say that you have actually figured out, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to quit my job. Don't just like walk out the door. There's a lot of stuff that you should do in order to make sure that you set yourself up for the most success. Because what I've seen and what Selena has probably also seen is that people who end up not preparing in the right way are the ones who end up applying for new jobs 2 weeks after they quit. And you don't want to be this person if you're trying to quit your corporate job permanent. So validate your idea before you quit. Basically, when I was starting my company, I had 4 years to validate whether my idea would make me. I was making a little bit of side income before I did that, before I quit, and knew that there was at least some potential and there was some interest in it. Make sure that you actually have some money. So, building what you want to build and the way you want to build it, you're going to need to sink more money than you have. You're not going to immediately recoup your paycheck unless you're really. But like, you hear people all the time, some of you probably met people who are like, oh, I'd never quit my job unless I'm making the amount of money that I've already made from my paycheck. Problem with that is that it's really hard to do that if you're not actually investing into the business. So really, a lot of the time, you should still be willing to take a risk if you believe in what you do, but you should have runway. You should understand exactly how much time you have to make the amount of money that you need to. And that's where creating very specific goals for what you want to do, specifically before you quit, you should, while you're still in a place where you have a job, you should be creating those goals, thinking about them rationally, and then making sure that you have a system to keep them, like actually in a way that you can stay accountable to them. And then you also, need to start getting prepared to lose your structure. So you're not, when you're in a corporate role, if you're in a corporate role, if you've never not been in a corporate role, you've probably had structure your entire adult life. You need to start, if you want to be successful, you don't necessarily have to do this, but you'll have a lot more success if you start to, in certain ways, like get more familiar, get more comfortable with not having other people tell you what to do. I think another thing that's really useful, at least at this stage, is starting to build a community. This is something I really struggled with when I was quitting my job. It was not fun for the first couple of months after I quit because I didn't really have anyone who was going through something similar. I think if I had, honestly, if I'd known other people were going through this, I might have quit my job earlier. And actually a big reason why I did quit when I did was because someone in my company actually knew what I was doing on the side. He confronted me. He's like, why are you still working here? Like, if he hadn't said that, I don't know if I would have even gotten over the mental block to even quit. It's just so much of winning your job has to do with just getting over that mental hurdle and having that community of people who have actually done it, because people have done it. And a lot of the things that you're planning to build aren't actually that hard. It's just that the mental block is so hard to get over that no one is doing. Getting over that mental block is a lot easier if you have that community around you. And then I think the other thing is, if you're able to just make, if you're in a place where your job is your whole personality, start trying to diversify that. It's really hard, especially if you've been like Selena. I'm just going to let her talk about it a little bit more because she, I think, had a real identity as a corporate lawyer for a while. I think in terms of my career, because I was, doing my gig on the side for so long, I didn't really struggle with this specific point as much. But for a lot of people, this is a really big. If you're giving up what you feel like is a part of you, it is really hard to move on to the next journey of your life.
Yeah, on that point, so I think one of the biggest difficulty that you're going to experience when you quit your job is not only the actual transition of like how am I gonna pay my bills and all of that practical stuff, but also your identity transition, especially if you're leaving your industry. So I've been practicing law for a long time at that point, and everybody knew me as a lawyer. So like, if you go to like a networking reception like today, people are like, oh, what's your name and what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm Selena, I'm a lawyer working in such and such firm. Everybody knows that. So there's no more questions asked. And then that lack of like belonging, like I don't even know where I belong or who I am, that's going to be really scary for you if you've been in a certain industry for a long time. So I think something that I learned the hard way is the importance of building a diverse portfolio of your life. So kind of like if you're a financial investor and if you're a really savvy investor, to not put all of your money in one thing, right? Because if you have all of your money in stock market and that crashes, guess what? You lost all your money. I think the same is true for our life. So don't like one thing be your whole life, whether it's a job or relationship or whatever it may be. It's hard to do that when you work in such an intense job like law or finance, but I do think it's such an important thing that I wish I had known then. Because if you are able to, this is actually something that you can all do before you quit. I actually advise you to do this before you quit. So invest some time in doing like a side project or building a side business or have some hobbies. Don't hang out with all the same people in your current industry. Virtually all my friends were lawyers. And when I was trying to leave, I didn't even know who to talk to anymore because they couldn't understand why I was trying to leave. So have different friend groups. And I think that's so then when you are able to do that and you have more of a diverse life portfolio, when you're going through a hard time, if you lose your job, if you're going to quit your job, you'll have other sources of joy, support to support you through the hard time. I think that's how you build a resilient life portfolio. I think something that so an experience that I had is like when I was trying to leave law, and I had a pretty good track record as a lawyer. I went to good law school and had a good job, and people couldn't understand why I wanted to leave the legal industry. And when I talked to lawyers, even the ones who hated their jobs, like they couldn't understand why I was trying to leave. And virtually everybody said, like, it's like not going to work out. And what are you doing? You're going to throw away all that you've done to do what? Like, what is coaching? Like, I don't understand. So something that I learned is that if you talk to, like, if you're thinking about transition and you're trying to like get some advice, don't only talk to the people who are in the current industry. So even if like they hate their job, they're really afraid. Even if they are thinking about maybe the possibility of leaving, they're kind of projecting their own insecurities onto you. So what they're actually saying is, if I were you, I couldn't quit. I couldn't do that. And I don't think they have that level of self-awareness, but what they're afraid of is reflected in their own advice to you. So what they're saying, if I were you, I couldn't do that. They say, don't do it. Like you're going to lose all your money and you're never going to be able to pay your bills. So it's really interesting. So like talk to people who have done the thing you want to do. Oh, of course, you can talk to people who haven't done it, but also talk to people who have done the thing you want to do. Who you talk to really matters. So then you have more of a balanced view and perspective. And if someone says like, oh, I can't, you can't do that. I think what they're doing is like kind of projecting their own insecurities onto you. So what's missing in the beginning is like, if I were you, I couldn't do that. But you're not them. We never know what we're capable of until we actually try. So I would say don't spend all of your time with the people in your current industry. Don't only ask them for advice. Talk to people who have actually left and actually came out better on the other side. I also made a conscious effort to hang out, make some new friends outside of my legal community, because literally like for all the legal conferences and everywhere I would go, I like run into the same people all the time. And it was kind of getting to a point where I'm like, okay, if I'm trying to leave law, this is really not helpful. So I didn't know at the time like where I could go. So I would just like search for community meetups of like creative people. At the time, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, but I just knew that I needed to get away from my legal industry. So I would just like in the morning, there's like creative meetup for, I don't know, artists or whatever. You just wanted to spend some time with people who are doing different things. And that kind of put things into a different perspective. Like, oh, wow, there are people who are doing other things that are cool and fun and they seem to enjoy what they do. So that was also helpful. Another thing that could be helpful for you when you are still employed, or maybe even if you're like transitioning out, is really invest in building a personal brand. And I feel like there's two ways to get opportunities. One is we seek them out. So you apply for a job, or you reach out for help. Can you introduce me to so and so who works in so and so job, whatever job, right? There's another way is to have the opportunities come to you. So that's is the result of having an effective personal brand. I think the result of an effective personal brand is when your goals and values and dreams are in alignment with and consistent with other people's perception of you. So, for example, like when I was trying to leave law, but I was still known as a lawyer, I wanted to become a coach and I wanted to get coaching clients. Let's say there's like a whole legal job at some law firm, and somebody thinks of me, Selena, like, do you want to apply for this job? Like, so and such law firm is hiring. Well, that is not good personal branding. Why? Because that is an amazing opportunity, but for somebody, but that is not consistent or in alignment with my goals and values, which is to build a coaching business, right? So you have to really think about like what is important to you, and then what do you want to be known for? And if you don't have any personal brand, everybody has it, but if you're like that's not consistent and nobody really knows who you are and what you do, once you leave your law firm or whatever corporate job, you're going to feel so lost. Like there's like nothing to fall back on. Once you're not part of a big firm anymore, you're going to feel like, oh my God, I don't even know what I can do. So I think if you invest some time in building a personal brand, I think, well, actually this Wednesday, I'm teaching it for my Living Gym Club. So I know we have some members here, so we're going to go very into detail because it could be a huge asset, but just very briefly, it's like you have to know yourself, you have to learn about yourself and your values. And then you have to really learn about, define your goals and dreams. Like, what is it that you really, really want? Like, you don't know what you want. It's kind of like getting into an Uber and be like, well, let's just go anywhere. You're probably not going to like where you end up at. So having some kind of a direction and path is really helpful. And then you have to be able to share your story in person and also online. And so I don't think we have time to go through all of that. That basically, if you become known for something and then people like when you're not in the room and then there's like a cool opportunity, the goal is for people to think about you. If somebody hears a cool opportunity that would be exciting for you, and then they think about you, that means you have a very effective personal brand. And so, for example, like a few years ago, I had someone in Japan, in Tokyo, and I'm Korean American, so I don't really know people in Japan. And now I do, but at the time I didn't. And someone reached out and asked me for coaching. So she started to work with me, and I was like, oh, well, how did you know about me? And she said, well, I was like talking to my friend about like quitting my legal job. And then she said that I should reach out to you. So I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And she's been saying that for like 2 years. And this person finally reached out. So again, you see, and I was like, well, how did that person find out about me? And I think through LinkedIn. So I've been trying to be active on LinkedIn.
I just wanted to get a show of hands. How many of you guys have been preparing for your quitting your job with one or more of these things? Okay. Kay, I'm gonna pick on you. Can I ask you like specifically what you've been doing?
Definitely making sure. Definitely making sure I have no financial runaway. I think that's the most important thing. Validating my idea. I haven't started, but I've been doing research.
What's your idea?
So I'd like to buy a business from someone. I don't want to start from scratch, but the whole idea is to buy like an existing business or invest into an existing business and modernize it and run it. The whole thing for me is autonomy and owning myself. And so I don't want to buy a job. I want to buy a business and have freedom. I said it. I was structured thing. I've always been good with that. Community.
That's like what the biggest concern you have is.
Going to the youth thing.
Yeah.
The fact that I've never done it before, it's the risk, it's the potential of failure, right? So it's just about the confidence to take the jump and they've totally new thing.
Yeah. Do you think like the fact that do you have others around you who have ever done something like this?
I have one really good friend pass.
Okay. Interesting. So, okay. It sounds like it's just a big leap and you're still trying to figure out whether or not
I mean, I know I want to do it. It's just about, I guess.
A matter of when. Okay.
Yeah, it's a matter of when.
Okay.
It's a matter of like when is the right time.
All right, I have an interesting follow-up to that. Does anyone in the audience want to give Kay some advice? Go.
That's good.
I think you raised your hand first, Dello, or Deb, sorry, so sorry.
Everybody out there, sorry, quick. We only advice. That I could give, and this is, any advice is like me talking to me. It's like there's no such thing as that. There's also no such thing as that last time, but. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. It's just like twofold. It's like one, there's no such thing as ready. And there's also no such thing as lost time. I think so much of what I have to deal with is like, oh no, did I do this in the right time frame? Am I in the right time horizon? Did I miss the mark? And when you really think about it, like, there's no such thing as just a mark. You already need to be in the right time in this place. So go for it and something to share.
I was gonna say something like similar to what Oscar just said, really. But I guess I would add that you mentioned that you already have a grounding with like structure. And so with that, like maybe working on like your strengths might help you actually really tap into having a little more confidence and finding out like I feel like when we talk about this conversation, I hear about, some of the things that we talk about are the fears, but how about your successes? How about things you're actually doing right now where you're already building your financial runway, you have structure, you have routine. And so lean on that, especially right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Does anyone else here who is in the stages of preparing their transition want to share their story?
Less story, I just want to get advice. This is like great crowdsourcing. So I'll give you some context quickly. I'm Quayle, based in New York, in Chicago. Went to school, I started my career. Now we investment bank. So much of me, like it's in fashion, we get to do it, right? Come back down, we get to style the things. And so it's like kind of too perfect, like it kind of works, kind of in the sweet spot, but I'm also getting really close to golden handcuffs, which is what Selena mentioned earlier. Selena mentioned earlier. So it's just, it's all working, it all feels kind of good, but it's like, what is going to be the impetus and motivation? What I've long said, in terms of what that would be, is just when I kind of feel myself kind of hating going into my office, right? Like when you know, like, oh my God, this is like that dreadful feeling. And also like when my gut is just becoming overwhelming, like resounding one or another direction with, no, this is it. So again, it's really good. I get to do both. I get to have like all the corporate polish. I get to be and do a lot of the cool things, but what's going to be a real, I don't know, transition out of this advice and we'll give some new thoughts.
You'd say like you're kind of getting to the point where you think you might be too comfortable.
Yeah, because it all works, right? Like I get to do all the things, like I get to econ, international relations background, like I get to leverage all the schooling and all the, like it works, but know that at some point I'm gonna be working around there. I'm really close to things. It's just a little too sweet and you're not pushing hard.
Yeah. So I appreciate everyone who just shared because the next part is probably the hardest part of the whole night. And that is talking about, and I think it's really important that everyone in this audience understands that there are multiple people who are doing this. Because the next part is you quit. And the reason why we style this slide this way is because this is by far the most chaotic point of quitting your job, the actual quitting. And I've seen so many people who have just like gone through this point and they just can't handle it. And the thing that you really need to go into this quitting stage with is number one, you have to like have, well, you probably should follow the advice that we gave you in the last two slides. Like, obviously, everyone's a little bit different, but I would highly recommend it. But number two, there are a couple of things that you really, really need to do in order to keep that winning status in a rational place. Because once you quit your job and you've lost that sense of structure, it is so easy to just irrationally start making decisions. So there are, I mean, there's the oh shit moment. Like there's the moment where you realize you actually did it. Like it's, you know how when you're on a plane and you're about to go skydiving and you're really afraid about doing it, and then you go and then you realize it's actually okay. It's the opposite when you quit your job. It's literally the opposite. So you're gonna be feeling like that moment of like, oh fuck, I'm about to go and skydive off of a plane for about 2 weeks to 3 months of your life, maybe even 6 months. So you need to be prepared to be emotionally supportive of yourself. And I truly mean this, like emotionally supportive of yourself to do that and to stay true to yourself while you're doing that. There are other ways that you can keep, you know, that support going. The best is we did discuss like having specific goals before you quit your job. That is because the rationality goes out the window as soon as you like, actually the first week is probably fine. Week 2 is when you start realizing like, shit, this is real. I'm not getting my paycheck. But you know, you're starting, so many people just seeing their bank account go down rather than up, that like changes the mental switch in you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go and get the corporate job again immediately, because you set goals for yourself. You set runway for yourself. If you are actually tracking those goals and you haven't gotten to a point where those goals aren't unrealistic already, you've already validated your idea. You've already decided that you have to take this chance now. You've already gotten to the point where you're like, I can't afford to not quit my job. If you go back because you just see your bank account going down, like you're not really making a rational decision. I hate to say it, but you're not making a rational decision. And honestly, getting through this part is going to be so good for you, because if you can handle yourself with the anxiety and fear of going through something that scary, it's going to prepare you to go through other uncertainty through the rest of your journey as an entrepreneur. And to be totally honest, like, you know, when you're a corporate job, there's going to be attacks of fear and anxiety. Depending on what you're building, you're probably going to be going through, you know, some probably not catastrophic, hopefully not catastrophic, but probably some stressful times. You are now your own boss, or you have a partner. And so just not having that structure will result in unstructured things happening. You might have 1 month where you make $10,000. You might have another month where you lose $5,000. You know, depending on what your business is. But those places of uncertainty, if you harness them right, they're going to make you a much better business person. You're going to learn from your mistakes. Like that same feeling that it's going to make you really uncomfortable when you quit your job, you're going to like be so emotionally invested in what you do that you're not gonna fuck up a second time. If you make a mistake the first time, you are not gonna make that same mistake again. You like that's, I think, when we're talking about you know, taking advantage of that feeling is going to imprint you. If you know that, and you know that like putting yourself in a position of uncomfortability can like actually make you learn things, you can learn so much, and you can become like, I think that's part of the reason why Selena has become an effective coach, because she's been in uncomfortable situations. You know, like the other thing that I wanted to talk about here is if you can, you know, on the inside, you might be feeling like you're about to go and dive off of that plane. But if on the outside, you can just come out and be confident and just wear your new identity as this entrepreneur and just be confident in what you're building, that will get you so much. That'll get you so far. Because, you know, you're gonna, whatever you're building, you're gonna have setbacks in the first couple of months, most likely, unless you're really lucky. If you can get through and like let's say you have something negative happen, like let's say you lose like $5,000 in money in October or something, because your job, because you're, investing in your company, you haven't made money yet. But if your KPI or your goal is to maybe like lose less than $5,000 3 months from now, you're still losing money, but you're basically getting rejected in your goal, but you haven't gotten rejected to the point where you've set out to like, basically you haven't gotten to the point where your business is done. Like you haven't, just getting rejected doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't meeting your goals. It is a totally different emotion. So I think one thing that's important is being okay with not meeting those emotional moments. Emotional moments are very different than goals. Everyone in sales knows this. Like getting a good amount of leads, the best people are okay with getting rejected 50 times before getting a good lead. If you're okay with that, like, if like, let's say, for example, I'm not going to name names, but I know someone who started a company about 2 years ago, with their job, tried to get some leads for their company, maybe got through 5 people, got rejected by all of them, and then started applying for jobs again. They didn't give it long enough, but the feeling of getting rejected didn't work for them. And they had this whole idea that I think would have worked great, and I was really impressed with it. And then all of a sudden, I see on LinkedIn one day, oh, they're hired by this company, and I guess that's not happening anymore. And I feel kind of bad because I think another thing that could have helped, and we already talked about this, but just having a community of people is so important. And if this person had talked to me before, going and actually applying for jobs, I would have been like, here's the reason why there's still value in this. And like I'd only quit my job like a couple months before that happened. So, it would have been great to have someone down in the booties with me, but it ended up not happening. But yeah, I think it's really, really important just to have your own self-worth and to have community when you're in this place. And this is the most vulnerable you will be. But if you get through it, it's amazing. The dividends are just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Fear and anxiety are the price you pay for freedom and autonomy. So almost expecting that you're going to be anxious a lot and you're going to experience a lot of fear. Because when you are navigating a transition, and whether you're putting to start your own thing or whatever it may be, that period of uncertainty can be really, really frightening. So it can be super scary. And so just know that it is normal to be afraid, just normal to feel anxious. That is part of the price you pay for quitting what seems like a seemingly stable job, but there's really no stable jobs anymore.
It always seems safe.
Yeah, it always seems
That's
safe.
the trap.
And then I think what was helpful for me was I let that anxiety fuel me to take action harder to build my own coaching business. Because I mean, to be honest, like being a lawyer was a lot of hard work too. And I was pulling all-nighters, I was working on the weekends, I was working super hard, again, to help rich people become richer for the law firm and for my career too. But I think at the end of the day, I felt like if I can work just as hard to build my own thing, is there a chance that I can make it work someday? Maybe not right away, but someday. Could there be a chance? And I thought, you know what, there's a decent chance of that. So that's why I left. So knowing like why you're leaving and what you're trying to experience and what you're trying to accomplish and knowing your values would be really, really helpful for you. And yeah, I put this build your rejection muscle because this will be helpful regardless of what you do after you quit. Because I learned, so years ago, I wrote and published a book because it was one of my childhood dreams to write a book with my name on it. And at the time, I was really unsure about my career direction. This is when I was working as a lawyer. So I wanted to interview people who seemed to have it figured out, who achieved their goals and dreams. And I interviewed a bunch of people and wanted to interview a bunch of people and then actually like wrote a story about how they overcame failures and challenges to achieve their goals and dreams. Well, the challenge was nobody wanted to give me their time. Like literally, I got rejected from everybody that I reached out to. And at the time, it was really hurtful because here I was like with this big dream of like getting my book published. And like people either said no or they would not even respond. It was like no response. So I was really feeling hurt at the time. And then one day I was like thinking about, well, why am I getting rejected here? Well, it's because I'm trying to take action towards my goal of achieving my childhood dream, which is to write a book, right? And so if I wasn't doing that, there's no reason for anyone to reject me. So if you think about it, rejection is the evidence of you taking action. The real failure is like actually not doing anything. So when I reframed it as, wow, the rejection is actually the evidence of taking action, like that made me feel a lot better about it. And then I started this challenge called the Rejection Challenge, which is a part of my coaching, one-on-one coaching, also the Vision Club. We have this, I challenge all my clients to do a rejection challenge, which is collect as many rejections as you can. I don't care about the yeses, I only care about the no's or the lack of response. And then the more you collect, like you become a winner. So we have a challenge going on. So whoever collects the most rejection wins an award. And the goal is to reframe rejection as the evidence of taking action. Because honestly, it's just a numbers game. Like the more no's you get, the faster you'll get to a yes. And also learn that when you hear no, it doesn't mean no, never. It means no, not right now. But people let the no's get to them and they take it so personally, but they are so afraid of putting themselves out there. So most people are self-rejecting themselves. And so if you figure this out, trust me, you're going to get a lot of opportunities because the competition is pretty low. So if you, even in like your personal life, it could be just small things. Like what are some things that you're afraid of asking because like you're afraid of hearing a no in your personal and professional life, and start doing those. And then in the beginning, you'll like be a little bit maybe timid, but then soon enough, it's like building a real muscle. Like the more you do it, the better you get. And then when you're about to quit your job and maybe build your own thing, it's going to be a huge asset.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so let me phrase it in another way. If that didn't make you interested, that's a great explanation. But another thing is rather than getting rejected, you can think of going and getting more people and trying to ask them about things is just collecting data points. And collecting that data point about whether something works or doesn't, if you just frame that as a win, like that's totally reframing how you think about rejection. And that can set you up to just go through the whole process so much more in such a better way. And of course, if you're quitting your job, you're going to want to quit in a way that not only keeps you sane, but also, keeps you sustainable for the long term and keeps as many of those relationships that you had in your previous life in the right position. So when you're quitting your job, you might be super happy. You're probably going to be at the place before you're like, oh shit. But make sure that you're not just quitting and like acting like you're never going to see these people. Do it politely, especially if you're going to start your own company, and you want to be the face of it one day. Quitting in the wrong way can potentially come out. You don't want to just ghost your employer. You don't want to leave them hanging in the middle of a really important project. Make sure to give notice, tell them what's going on. But you should definitely, once you take that step of being respectful, do it in a way that makes it clear that you are convicted. You have conviction in what you're doing. You believe in what you're doing and you are going. This is actually really helpful in the last thing we talked about. If you are able to tell someone else that you believe in what you're doing and you're doing it for a reason, this actually people they can smell conviction. They can smell when you're confident. And if you're able to have an opportunity that you're willing to quit for, you should be able to convince your boss that you're willing to quit. Your boss is probably not going to be happy. They're going to have to get another person to backfill you. But you are actually going through and doing something that you're passionate about. You're doing something that you believe in. And if you're able to tell them that and show them that you're pursuing your dream, no one is going to hate you because you're like going and you're doing something that they were probably afraid to do 5, 10, or 15 years ago. I think, one thing that I found really useful, I don't know if Selena would agree, but I actually tried to distance myself from people in my corporate world, like in the immediate aftermath of quitting. Part of that was because, that was my social network. They were super, I could have just, tried to stay in that circle, but I didn't think it was good for me. I think I needed to like get myself out there and, because something that can happen is if you're in that stage where after, quitting, you're in the oh shit moment, you're not really sure what to do. You could have those people at your old company who are just trying to claw you back and they're like, hey, maybe you made the wrong decision. You can always come back here. That can sometimes be a little bit too enticing to pass over. So maybe just try to distance yourself from these people. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna like judge you in the long term if you distance yourself a little bit to build what you're building for 12 months till you're a little bit more confident in it. But I mean like mentally confident. But yeah, I think that's another thing that I'm gonna hand this off to Selena, but I think actually for the long term, maintaining habits to make sure that you are living sustainably while not having a structured corporate job.
Yeah, I learned that the desires of the people around you affect your own desires. So even when I wasn't sure that law was the right path for me, if like all the people around me think that I should stay as a lawyer, maybe try to make partner or go in-house or whatever it may be, then all of a sudden you start to be confused, like, oh, wait, maybe I should want that. I went to law school. So like, it's really interesting how like the people around you, like their desires affect your own desires. So if you're thinking about kind of giving yourself the permission to experience other paths, maybe try something else, make sure that you surround yourself with other people who are or have already pursued the new goal you want. People who have quit or who are building their own thing or doing more creative things, whatever it may be. So for example, like if you are, let's say you've never run a marathon and you want to try for the first time and nobody around you runs a marathon and everybody's lazy, they eat junk food. If you're like, get up super early to go for a run, people will be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that? What a waste of time, right? But if you join a running club where everybody runs a marathon, of course you should run. You should run all the marathons around the world. And there's running communities, you meet together. So like when you are surrounded by other people in a community where the norm is already like achieving the goal that you want, then it becomes super easy. So there's something that I also learned the hard way, because when I was still in law and everybody around me was like, don't quit, what are you doing? You're gonna, it's not gonna work out for you. Then it can be really scary. There's a really inspirational podcast. I interviewed a really famous lawyer named Michael Kim, and it's an episode called How to Make Yourself Happy. And he talked about his journey of living like a stable legal path to build this law firm and building an entrepreneur. And this episode went viral, so I'll be happy to share with you after. So do you want to talk?
Yeah, so I guess just one last thing before we hop to some questions is, I think just to build on what Selena said, like it is really important in addition to building that community to build healthy habits. When you have your own company, you're making, do you guys know what the difference between type 1 and type 2 thinking is? Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like type 1 is when you are actively making decisions on what to do. Like it's not like your brain is on autopilot. It's like, when you were little and you were like learning how to tie your shoes, but now your brain knows how to do it. So because your brain knows how to do it, would be type 2 thinking, because your brain is just doing something without actively having to learn. When you have your own business, you're going to be doing a lot more type 1 thinking, and that's going to take a lot more energy out of you than you might expect from like a corporate role, absent maybe like the first 30, 60 days of onboarding. It's going to be onboarding forever when you have the second job. So that is going to take a lot out of you, and you're going to have to find healthy ways some people, that's why you see like people like Elon Musk who have a K addiction, because that's his unhealthy way of coping with that type of work. No offense to those of you who respect Elon Musk, he's done some really incredible shit, but like, he does have, in my opinion, some issues with the way that he copes with the amount of habits. If you can build healthy habits, like going to the gym, exercise, being out with community, that is going to get you really far, not just in terms of your ability to make money, but also like living a sustainable life and keeping the relationships with the people you care about going. I think it's just really, really important to understand that, because when you're quitting your job, and even when you're getting to the point where you have money, money isn't the only thing that matters. Like, you want to actually make that money for things that you care about. Even if the thing that you're doing with your job is something you care about. Work-life balance is important when work is your life. And yeah, I think ultimately, yeah, just like take care of yourself. I think, what I basically just said about, building healthy habits, that does play a role in it, but, just give yourself a credit. Like, a lot of people who have been in corporate jobs, not everyone, but like a lot of people who've been in the corporate world have been in situations where they're valued way less than they actually are. I find it really common for someone to go, not to really pick on you, but to go from like an Ivy League school to like just a cog in the wheel, just really feel like a nobody. And part of the reason you go and you work at these companies is because you're an outstanding individual. And it's also really hard to remember that a lot of the time when you're just working with all these other really hardworking people. That's not the norm. And if you're, able to get out, and you're doing your own thing, you've also done something even more amazing, which is actually taken a leap and done something really uncomfortable. So I think, people in this room, you're smart because you came to this event, and probably because of other things that you've done in your life. You are willing to take a risk, and you are, if you're doing that stuff, you're already like within the top 5 percentile of people in probably even this city. So give yourself credit for that, all right? I think everyone deserves a round of applause for coming to this, all right?
I think a question that I hear a lot from my clients and other people is like, oh, what if I make a wrong decision? And when you are confronted by this like really important decision of your life, whether to quit your job or not, it can bring up a lot of anxiety. So of course your thought will go to a place of like, oh my God, what if I make a wrong decision? And while it's understandable because like you're afraid, like not sure what's going to happen, we unfortunately cannot experience both paths and then come back to the past and then decide what's the right decision. We can't do that, right? So I think that's not a very helpful question. So if you keep asking yourself, what if I make a wrong decision? What if I quit and nothing works out? That type of thinking will make you be fixated on the worst case scenario. Like if you think about what if I make a wrong decision, you're going to think about like the worst case scenario, like you quitting your job and running out of money and whatever happened in your scenario, you all have one, I know you have it. And then when your mind goes there, then it's going to freak you out and you're going to be very anxious and very afraid and you're not going to be able to quit or build your company or start a side project or write your book or whatever it may be. So instead of thinking about like, what if I make a wrong decision? There's really no wrong decision. What if there's many different right decisions? Like you could stay and maybe get another job and build a side business and eventually quit. It doesn't work out. You can come back, but that doesn't mean you're a failure. I've learned, like I've been a coach for like 10 years now, and I've seen so many different ways of living a life that is great and amazing and fulfilling. And like your next step just has to like help you take one step into the right direction of your life you want it to go. It doesn't have to be the best decision or the right decision or like relieve yourself from the pressure that like the next decision is going to be the most important decision of your life. It's not. Like life is fluid. It's really interesting. There's so many different ways that life will work itself out. So instead of thinking, what if I make a wrong decision? And instead of thinking, what if it doesn't work out? Think about the best case scenario. What if it does work out? What if you do go ahead and build your thing? It's like hugely successful and it all works out. That's how I was kind of really trying to talk to myself. I thought, well, what if instead of thinking like, what if it doesn't work out? I thought, what if I do go out and build my coaching business and then I actually can make it work and I help a lot of people around the world and that has become a reality. So think about the best case scenario. You owe it to yourself. Even if you don't try it, you're going to think about the worst case scenario. So think about the best case scenario. And then trust yourself and trust your journey because you're going to figure this out. There's really no right or wrong decision. And there's more than one right decision. And then so think about like what would be fun to try next. And another thing that I've learned is, so I now have clients all over the world and I'm in a unique position where I hear the deep thoughts and the stories of struggle and the real raw experience that most people will not even share with their close friends or family members. And I'm every day hearing what people really want and what they struggle with. And I feel like I have a pretty unique insight into human life and human mind. And something I've noticed is this, how people feel about themselves doesn't really always correlate to their external achievements on paper. I have clients who are massively successful, some people who are famous, you might have heard of, but they don't feel it inside. It's like fascinating. They have all these external recognition, but they don't feel like they've made it. And I think it's because we haven't really cultivated, we haven't really learned how to build a good, kind relationship with ourselves. And I've learned that at the foundation of all success and happiness is how you talk to yourself, how you see yourself, and the relationship you build with yourself. If you don't know how to be kind to yourself and be self-compassionate, like really give yourself pep talk when you're going through the moments of anxiety where after you quit, you're not going to be able to make it happen. So I really encourage you to think about like how you can talk to yourself like you talk to your best friend, how you can encourage yourself because you are going to be the person who's going to spend the most amount of time with yourself. So with that, should we open up for questions?
Yeah, who has a question?
Yes.
What's your name?
Z.
Z.
Hi. My question is, after you made the decision during the transition phase where you're still holding a full-time job and starting your side hustle, how do you manage your time and how do you set goals to keep yourself accountable, especially if it's a live event that has like a due date, and then you also working a full-time job. And a second part of the question is with building personal branding or a community, do you start with your internal connections or is there a tip for like cold calling collaborations? Thank you.
I'll start off with try to answer the first part. There's no really easy way to say this, but if you're passionate enough to quit your job and build a side hustle, you're gonna just find the time to build it. Like you should be passionate enough to be like spending free time doing what you're doing. You should probably either have a job that pays enough that you can quit and have enough runway to just spend a couple of months building out what you're building. I get it. If you're in investment banking, you're not going to be able to really effectively build something on the side. But if you're working more like a 40, 50, or even 60-hour work week, you should be able to find some weekends and who here watches Netflix? That's actually only about half of you. What about any streaming service at all? TV? Okay, that's more of you guys. So replace your Netflix and streaming time with starting your business. You can do that. I know you can find the hours to do that. Even if you're, spend 3 hours a month, like on something like this, that's better than zero, and you'll start to build that foundation. And this is still a side hustle. So you don't need to be making money, you just need to be building that foundation. I think honestly, the other questions, Selena might be a little bit more, she might be a little bit more equipped to answer them, so I'm just gonna hand it off to her.
In terms of making time for your first question, I know it's tough because you're already have a full-time job and then you're busy and probably like already not enough time to do other things. But I think so this is why it's important to ask yourself, like, why do you want to do this? So let me ask you, why is this side project or side business? Why is it important to you?
It's more of the core value I've been in the industry I'm working in for over 10 years. And I've kind of hit the plateau and there's not a lot of room to grow from here. And then I had developed some allergies that involve the in-person task, which makes it physically unsustainable. And so I've been deep diving into like how do I what is it that I love about my job? And then I deep dive into it and then I realize that people around me already know my core values, and then I decide to put that strength into what I'm trying to build next. And so that's
Yeah, when even if we say we're gonna do something, if there's like no clear deadline or urgency, and nobody cares if you don't do it, like we just don't do it, right? It's because the goal is too far away from you. So for example, like when I was trying to write my book, it was my childhood dream. It was one of those dreams where like I thought if I never gave myself permission to try it, I would regret it at the end of my life. And those are some of the projects you could take on. But then if nobody does it, nobody cares. Like if I don't do it, nobody cares, right? And so in my coaching, I teach this like time matrix where we all like get things done when there's urgent, right? It's urgent and there's like deadline and it's important, like your boss gives you an assignment. But some of the most important things are in the quadrant where it's not important, it's important but not urgent. These are your dreams, your business, quitting your job, working on your relationship, taking care of your health. All of those fall into that bucket of important but not urgent. So it's helpful if you can create some kind of deadline or accountability. So in the beginning, you have to put in a lot of effort to move it to the category, the quadrant where it is not important and urgent. So for example, when I wrote my book, in the beginning, nobody cared because like nobody was calling my name to write a book, right? But then when I reached out to interview people and then they said yes, and then all of a sudden now they're like, oh, when's the book going to be published? Well, now I better make it happen because there are people counting on it, right? And then when you sign a contract with the publisher, then it becomes more urgent, right? Also, I would maybe not do it alone, see if there's like a friend you could collaborate with. So for example, like, let me just throw an example, like if you, let's say if you're a lawyer and then you're thinking about maybe joining a startup, I call it like the design your career experiment rather than just quitting and trying to do it from scratch. Maybe you could volunteer to help another startup founder to put together a presentation about assessing the legal risk or something of the idea. I'm just making it up, but you get the idea, right? Like how can you experience the opportunity before you actually make it full time? But in this scenario, there's accountability because you're helping somebody else, right? So it is really hard if you say, I'm going to go to the gym by myself, like chances are you're probably not going to do it, but if there's a friend waiting for you, you're probably going to go. So I would say create some kind of urgency or fake deadline or accountability in whatever format that you can, because it's hard to motivate yourself in the beginning. In terms of personal brand, I would it's a whole nother session. So not sure if I can like briefly answer it right now, but the best way that you can, I would really think about like who you are and what you want, what you stand for, and what is important to you. So building a personal brand is much more than just posting on social media, because it is like who you want to show up in the world as. So think about like all what you're working on, what you're going through, and what is important to you. And then you want to start sharing your stories and your goals. So like when you go to like networking receptions like this, or you share a post or on social media, you're not just going to talk about, okay, this is my job. But you're going to talk about who you are and what you want, like maybe your next goal, the side business, side project, to that extent you can, because I know on LinkedIn, I have clients who are trying to leave and they don't want their boss to see what they're working on. So maybe not on LinkedIn, but maybe on Instagram. Talk about your goals and dreams. Don't just say I'm Selena from whatever, I work at this law firm. That's not going to help you to build a personal brand that you want to be known for. So share your storybook in person, like talk about what you want. People are not mind readers. So like if you tell people what you want, it's like this is how you get lucky. You say you want an XYZ opportunity and you tell enough people about it. All of a sudden, people will be like thinking about you when they hear of that opportunity. Like, oh, didn't you say you're interested in XYZ? Oh, I just met someone who did that. So this is how I did everything. Wrote my book, did my podcast, and everything. So I hope that's helpful for you. Yeah. I think yes.
Thank you for hosting this, very helpful advice. But I was wondering if your advice would change for someone who doesn't want to go to school. Like
Do you mind speaking a little bit?
Can you hear me now? Maybe it's just not. I think it's not. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering like if your advice would change for someone who's not trying to do it. Like I would just like to quit and find another job. And I'm okay with just like working and like taking care of myself. And so like does your advice change? I mean, you had a lot of ideas which made me think like, oh, maybe I want to do something, but if I'm not at that position, like what advice would you have right now? Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I'm gonna try to keep this brief because I think we're running a little bit low on time and I want to give you guys some time to like mingle before we put this all down. But basically, I think in terms of quitting to go and take another job, my advice would be very different. I would just try searching for those jobs. If you're not necessarily finding them, maybe that's one thing. If you want to go into another career, that's another thing. Do you know if you want to go into another career?
I don't know, but I just don't want to be there.
You don't want to be where you are.
Like
Yeah.
today's day one of medicine. Which is
Okay.
like also like the strategy. Like this worked out.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that I was right. It's been okay.
yeah, okay. I that sucks. I've been in that situation before. Yeah, I mean, I would just start like looking for other jobs. Unless you want to take sabbatical in the middle. Yeah, it kind of sucks when you start something and it's not what you expected. I would, if I were you, I would try to think like, how did I would ask myself if I were in your situation, how did I get to a position where I'm starting a new job and I hate it already? Like what happened? What mistakes did I make the first time? So that the second time this happens, I don't make that same mistake. I think it is obviously important for you to change your job because of the situation that you just mentioned, but I would not be thinking about it in a way of how did I just need a new job. I would be thinking about it in a way such that how do I, in the next job that I get, make sure that this doesn't happen again? And there are ways to go about that. I think, just the way that I would do it as a very analytical person is just thinking about the things that I did that got me to the action of being in this situation in the first place. Like, was there a specific thing that attracted me to this job? Was there certain due diligence I did? Is there a certain industry that this job's in that is susceptible to this type of thing that I would just start doing that, then roll out all the companies that you could potentially work for that might potentially get you into that situation again. Once you know where you want to go next in your career, then start looking at jobs.
Yeah, well, I think today our session was designed to talk about how to quit your job, and then if you want to build something, But there are so many people who just quit and they don't want to build anything. I honestly think that building your own thing is, that is really, really, really hard. So it is definitely not for everyone. So I don't advise everyone to just quit and build your own thing if that's not what you want. There are plenty of people who quit and then they're ready to embark on a new career, and that's the majority of my clients. And I think the way to kind of think about it is, again, what we talked about earlier in terms of your reasons for quitting. Like have some your own framework or value standard for making your own decision, like knowing your values, what is important to you. So I've shared some of mine, which is like my, it's like, it's not meaningful to me. There's no freedom. Another thing that I think is important, like an important consideration. If a job is so toxic that like it is really affecting you mentally and physically, I don't think it is worth it. So for me, there were so many all-nighters I pulled as an investment banker corporate lawyer. And I remember thinking like, if I could just get 4 hours of sleep, like I would be able to function. And now that I think about it, how ridiculous that thought was, it was so terrible. And I like to sleep. And when I didn't sleep a lot, I was like the worst version of myself. I was not patient, I was irritable, just generally in a bad mood. And it was really affecting my health in a negative way. And it was not worth it. And I didn't know at the time. I was young and everybody was doing it. People like brag about how little sleep they get. And it's just so terrible. And now that like I have a lot of clients who are older and some of them have really serious health challenges because for years and years they didn't take care of themselves. So I feel like if it's one of those situations where it's so toxic that it's like really mentally, physically affecting you in a negative way, I do think that it may be a good reason to quit, even if you don't have something lined up right away. And I would also think about like, how can you, what did you learn from this experience about what you don't want? I feel like a lot of times when we flip pain, it reveals what's really important to us. So like we learn more about ourselves through painful times, right? Like if you flip the pain, it will reveal what is the most important to you. And then with that insight, now you're going to be able to make a more informed decision about your next step. Maybe you're going to listen to yourself more, and maybe you'll be more honest about what it is that you really want. And then if you have some ideas about what possible next career step might be, I would encourage you to design your own career experiment. There's no one in the world whose job it is to tell you honest information about what your job will actually be like when you start it. So for example, when I became a lawyer, I actually didn't know what being a lawyer was all about until I became one. If I actually knew how I was going to spend my time, I might not have signed up for it, but nobody told me. And I feel like that's like the case true for a lot of my friends and many industries, right? So like, how are you going to actually spend time? Not like just a job title, not what it says, but like on your your LinkedIn, whatever, but like what do you do every single day? What do you do in your office? And as a private lawyer, that was review contracts to help people richer. And I did not like that. So I would talk to as many people as possible, design your own career experiment, and ask yourself this question: how can I experience this job, the new possible job, without making my full-time job? And do a lot of research. And then to tell yourself that you just have to take one step into the right direction. Your next job doesn't have to be the job or the dream job. I don't think such thing exists. I learned that there's a trade-off in life. There's like the good comes with the bad. There's nothing perfect. There's no perfect job, no perfect relationship, no perfect country, city, nothing, right? The good comes with the bad. What are some bad things? And can I tolerate them? Or are they deal breakers? Kind of like if you think about your personal like relationship, if you're dating someone, you know how y'all have a deal breaker? What are some of the deal breaker for your job? Like what are non-negotiable for you? And just be very clear about it. And then when you are pretty clear with yourself about what is that you really want, it's going to really help you make a more of an informed decision. And I hope that's helpful.
All right, thanks, guys. Before we leave, and we all just get a selfie just to show that we're all quitting our jobs. This is to hold you all accountable. All right. So
Okay,
maybe you
do a selfie.
yes, let's do it. Let's see if we get everyone in here.
Okay, I hope so.
Wait, Selena, come closer.
Here.
All right, try to.
Actually,
We can-
do we have a few minutes? What time is it?
I think I'm getting vibes that people here want to go mingle and talk to each other and
Yes.
come up with ideas to quit their jobs
Yeah.
with each other.
Okay.
So we have this space for another, 50 minutes?
Yeah.
So we have drinks, we have food.
Yeah.
Go talk to each other. You can ask us more questions. Thank you all so much for coming and hopefully this was helpful.
I have thank you. I know that some people are a little bit shy, so I've done many events. So this is my attempt at trying to make sure that you are able to talk to each other in a more comfortable way. I want you to all get into groups of 4 just for 5 minutes and then find someone you don't know, you didn't come with, and then talk about why you want to quit and maybe one takeaway from it today, from our session today, and one action you're going to take. I want you to exchange information, and then 1 week from today, so next Monday, actually accountability, actually text each other, email each other, and then say that you've taken that one action. So I want you to find 4 people right now.